Welcome back to Backchat Bites. I'm tackling the NDIS today, that universal healthcare system we've established here in Australia that's sending our country broke, basically, for generations to come. It has also very successfully turned early intervention, early identification and treatment in this country into a money-making scheme. It's big business. Now, I'm a paediatric therapist. I have well over 2 decades of experience. Before I started working in the private sector, I'd worked for over a decade in community health centres, in hospitals. I worked in low birth weight clinics alongside paediatricians, occupational therapists, physiotherapists. I went out and visited Indigenous communities once a week with a paediatric and allied health team. I also worked in the local community health centre with children who struggled with a whole range of developmental conditions. And then I started working in the private sector. When I started, I was earning $50 per client that I saw. Nowadays, young therapists can leave university with basically no experience, and they can hang up a shingle and start their own practice and earn $193 an hour. And you really don't need any experience to do it. So let me tell you a little bit about the circus that this has created here in Queensland. Inexperienced therapists are chasing big bucks from big companies, offering bonuses, offering PD, offering everything so that young, inexperienced therapists will join their huge team of therapists. Guess what that means? That means that these therapists are then moving around because they're constantly changing the next best deal. Who's going to offer me more money? Who's going to offer me better PD? Who's going to offer me more leave? Who's going to offer me a better service? They're not focused on our little ones. They're not focused on, like us therapists who've, worked from years ago. We work with families for up to a decade. These young therapists are not getting that experience. They're not staying in a job for long enough to experience the outcomes that children can get with excellent early intervention. And we have a lot of young therapists, a lot of young, inexperienced therapists on the ground who are telling parents, and we hear it every day in our clinic, your child will never talk, your child will never be able to do this, your child will never read, and it's simply untrue. NDIS has completely wrecked a whole generation of therapists because we have monetised it. Another issue we have is that inexperienced therapists are now working for inexperienced therapists. So we have this situation now, I guess you'd call it, here in Queensland. And I say Queensland because that's where I work and this is where I know this is happening, where you have therapists who started work when the NDIS first came out and they hung up their shingle with no on-the-job training, no 10 years of experience before they went into the private sector. Now these inexperienced therapists have worked for a few years and they've started, because of their business now, they've started building these huge businesses by bringing on other inexperienced therapists. These huge companies, because that's what they are, they're businesses, they're money-making businesses, they're huge companies, they employ only new graduates. Very rarely do you ever see 1 or 2 older experienced therapists. They make millions of dollars. Their PD is very limited, little depth, but great PR. Whereby inexperienced therapists, very inexperienced therapists, setting up these big businesses, mostly with in-house training, not a lot of PD, and our professional bodies are not regulating this issue. There is no accountability. There is no one at the top saying, hang on, you only have this many years of experience. You cannot be working with this cohort. Hang on, you haven't worked in that area for long enough. You are not allowed to be working with these little ones. It's not good enough. This lack of regulation is not good enough, and everybody is talking about it up here on the ground here in Queensland. And the last thing is that young, inexperienced therapists are missing out children who have completely treatable early developmental conditions that are complex. Because when a child is young, the brain presents very differently to how it presents when they're a bit older. Because these young therapists have never experienced working with a child for a longer period, they don't understand that when a child is 2, they're completely different to how they are when they're 4, and then when they're 6, and then when they're 8 and 10 and 12. The brain changes. The brain changes, and it takes experience to know that. It takes experience to know with these really complex little ones from the first time they walk into your clinic, you see the big picture. You know what's going to be involved in getting this little one to the end, to a successful end, to a successful whole of life outcome. NDIS, the universal system that's monetised an area that should never have been about money. Lots of bells and whistles, but very little outcomes for our little ones. Thank you for listening to Conversations with Olwen. If you know somebody who needs to hear this episode today, please share it with them. Until next time,